It's from Amadeus, Ed Wright. So I'd like to welcome him to the stage. And he's going to share with us just how the customer journey has changed. Thank you.
Perfect. Hi, everybody. Thank you so much. I have to say, first off, it is so good to be here in person, talking to all of you. I think we're all trying to get used to face-to-face contact. How do we present a business card? Where do we keep it in our pocket? But I have to say, again, thank you so much for making the time. I know we're all busy, so I will crack on. So my name is Edward. I've been in the hospitality industry for 22 years. I've held hotel roles from convention services to area sales. And then in 2008, I joined a small technology company called Newmarket International. And a few countries later, and an acquisition later, I joined Amadeus, or Amadeus acquired us, and I now head up the Asia sales and customer success team. So that's the hospitality side. But what I wanted to do is kind of just share a little bit more about Amadeus and kind of what Amadeus is doing in Asia Pacific. So most of you all know Amadeus as a GDS, which of course we are, powering travel agents, OTAs like Expedia. But over the last 35 years, we've grown to become so much more, connecting all the dots within the traveler ecosystem. So we've been in Asia for 33 years and have become the largest technology company in the world. Our first partnership in Asia was with Thai Air in 1989. And our Amadeus Altéa system now powers some of the largest national carriers across APAC. Altéa, for hoteliers, just think CRS. For airlines, so that's inventory management, merchandising, departure management, and reservations. And if anybody remembers, and again, taking a step back, carbon tickets. Does anybody remember traveling with a carbon ticket back in the 80s, early 90s? It was all stapled together. It came in a lovely little booklet. So Navitaire, which is our low-cost carrier, were the pioneers of the first true ticketless travel. They were also the innovators of passenger seat merchandising. So I'm sorry, so this is when we started to introduce additional fares for meals, baggage preferences, and placement. So apologies about that, that was us. And we also support airports. So again, airport technology, I think of it as a PMS, a property management system on steroids, where we have solutions to manage everything that's in the airport, outside of the airport, from baggage handling, all the way through to live operations. So a couple of trends. What we see, and I think this is where we need all of your support from our partners, is that Amadeus is very fortunate to kind of really be at a unique position where we're able to connect our airlines, our rail, through our distribution networks. We also have deep-rooted hospitality partnerships through many of our different chains, and a lot of you are supporting us here in this room. And in 2021, we signed a strategic agreement with Microsoft to move all of our technology, which was originally in private hosted data centers, up into Microsoft Azure. So again, with your support and our partner support, we believe that the industry really is moving towards an end-to-end experience where the whole journey is connected. Connectivity obviously brings us personalization, which drives direct bookings. We would all love seamless airport experiences, and for anybody who's traveled in the last 6 months, I have to say it's definitely getting better, but there's still a long, long way to go in really streamlining that kind of journey through that airport. Connected mobility. Again, this is something that we don't always touch on, but looking at car rentals and the car rental business, that also really had to evolutionize due to the pandemic. So we now have Avis Budget providing keyless entry through a digital key, and there's a lot of innovations that are coming through that side of the industry as well. And of course, hotels. We love hotels. I'm a massive fan of hotels. Can't wait to start traveling again. And obviously, the whole goal of what we all want to do is drive loyalty, drive guest experience. And Liz just kind of touched on it. It's just using different technologies on how to support that. But what happened 2 years ago? COVID-19. So if we look at it from the airline perspective, COVID was a disaster for the airlines. So at one point, within the first 3 months, 18 different carriers filed for bankruptcy. 2/3 of all airlines globally were grounded, and it's estimated that the airline industry lost about 180 billion in 2020 alone. And then, like we're all having to go through, as restrictions started to lessen, they were all faced with complexity, really trying to understand, first of all, what do government regulations mean? What does that mean for our crew? What does it mean for our passengers when it comes to quarantine, social distancing? Also, the beloved self-check-in. So big debate on the hotel side. On the airline side, I'm definitely in favor. So the beloved the beloved kiosk check-in, which Changi has, was redundant. Everything had to go manual. They had to do manual verification processes, which caused long lines, frustration, and obviously discontent. And like the hotel industry, the great resignation. People just left the industry. People did not want to have to be in an airport 24/7 managing potentially COVID customers. So again, having to manage that with a skeleton staff. And then as the world did start opening up, how do you scale? You know, from an airline perspective, it's not one airplane, it's a whole network of infrastructure and airports. And the other thing that really, if we look and reflect on it, is what the European Commission did. So they also started to instigate a use it or lose it policy. So as we all know, there are key gateways and key gateway cities which require slots. So the Commission also required airlines to maintain their flights to keep those slots. So again, airlines were flying near empty flights to be able to keep those prime slots. And ultimately, you know, what was the result? Negative balance sheets and unhappy customers. So what we've all seen, and I think we can see it all within ourselves, you know, we've all changed. The customer journey has changed. Health and safety became a top priority, both within airports and airlines and hotels. Booking flexibility shifted from a perk to essential. And travelers' expectations now are more for low contact and high digitalization. And I think the whole digitalization piece has really been accelerated. You know, we are so much further forward than we ever thought we would be 4 years ago, 3 years ago, or even 2 years ago. And in exchange, we're now willing to provide more personal data to enhance that guest experience, whether it's through biometrics, whether it's through connectivity to health apps, in order to streamline and accelerate that process, you know, getting onto the plane and actually getting through the airport. And I think lastly, and it's certainly the case of myself, we want to have more control in the traveler journey. I've done a few trips to a couple of destinations, some in Europe, some in America, some in Asia, and trying to understand what is actually required at each of those different destinations is a nightmare. You go onto the government website, some of those government websites are too extensive. Some of those websites are non-existent. So we really want to be able to have a lot more control and expect a lot more from our providers in guiding us through that process. So as a response, the industry, first of all, needed to digitalize the way that we actually verified our health certificates. Good old QR code. I actually looked up QR codes last night. So the first QR code was invented, I think, in the mid-90s. It came into fashion probably around 2010, but it kind of disappeared. So the wonderful QR code is back. And if you go to Europe, QR codes are everywhere, just like they are in Asia. But that was the first step in digitalizing the verification of health certificates. So the next thing that we're starting to see, and it will be accelerated over the next few years, is self-check-in and biometrics. Again, if you go through Changi Terminal 4, if you go through Sydney Airport, if you go through Nareda, biometrics are now starting from the whole end-to-end journey, from using biometrics to drop off your bag, all the way to e-gates for self-check-in. So again, biometrics is here. It will continue to be here. And will it transition into hotels? Likely. At the moment, it's just too expensive. And the other big important one to note is the touchless experience on board. And if you think about it, you know, if we look at a hotel perspective, the big debate about casting has been around forever. You know, how do we cast our online streaming within a hotel room? But airlines have really been behind. So with 5G, and a lot of the agencies talking now about how to instigate and put 5G into airlines, expect to see your favorite Netflix show coming to you soon. But in the immediate future, the number one thing people are looking at is how can we connect our personal ear devices across all cabins via Bluetooth. Probably makes sense, right? No one really wants to put on a used, cheap headset. And the last one, I suppose, is tap to pay. So tap to pay in Asia is something that we use all the time, but tap to pay in airlines to pay for food, beverage, again, is something that we're expecting to see. Qatar announced last year that they're also looking at how to connect mobile devices to in-flight entertainments. So in the interim between getting 5G, you'll probably start to be able to connect directly to those airlines' entertainment systems. And the last one, just on the trends, is sustainability. And sustainability is here to stay, which is, I think, fantastic. We had a conversation about it the other week. Here in Marina Bay Sands, they've got a fantastic website which actually kind of demonstrates all the things that they've done to become LEED certified. So take a look. It really is fantastic on what they're doing. And for the airline industry, it's a real concern because passengers, particularly the younger generation, don't necessarily want to start using airlines, and they're starting to using alternative modes of transport, whether that's rail or car, because of the perception of the airline industry. But in fact, globally, it actually only makes up 2.5 carbon emissions. However, passenger numbers are set to double by 2037, so we have to do something as an industry to start solving that problem. 2021, One World announced that they were actually going to commit to getting all of their members to be carbon neutral by 2050. And one of the things that they're looking at is sustainable aviation fuel. So this is really how can you create fuel using sustainable methods, whether it's wind farm or other methods, or whether you are actually using waste products. June 25th, so last week, was Earth Day, and in celebration of that, Malaysian Airways actually flew their first passenger flight using 38% sustainable air fuel. So good step. One of the other things that we're expecting to see is hydrogen. Hydrogen is kind of the next evolution in sustainable management, and for airlines, that poses a problem. Hydrogen is not as fuel-rich as kerosene, so Airbus is kind of playing with different ideas at the moment. But what will need to happen is a radical change in actual airplane design. So if you look at Airbus, they're kind of coming out with these fixed-wing aircraft, which have to be bigger purely to be able to support the hydrogen needed to fly long haul. And if planes change, airports are also going to have to change. The supply chain is also going to have to change. So again, hydrogen by 2030, I think is optimistic, but again, something that will start to come more into play. Autonomous vehicles, absolutely. So again, if we look at airside, vehicles will transition to be autonomous, powered by electricity. And the last one, and getting this acronym right, EVTOL. So that stands for electronic vertical takeoff vehicles. So think flying cars. So Dubai is really investing that as part of their taxi side. United, Japan Airlines is also looking at electronic flying cars for short haul distances. And I'm sure Singapore will probably be looking into that sometime soon too. The Virgin Hyperloop, again, an alternative method of transport. So we'll have to see how that plays out between Dubai and Abu Dhabi and how Virgin gets on with that project. But personally, I think the first step in all of us is banning and removing single-use plastic. Every time I go onto an airplane, I kind of cringe because there is just so much plastic that is being wasted. So I would love to see just greater commitment in single-use plastic. So what has Amadeus been doing? So over the last 2 years, we really kind of got together with our airline partners to find a solution to the #1 critical challenge, which is automating and verifying health certificates. That is the biggest challenge that everybody has had to face. And we created something called the Amadeus ID for Safe Travel. And simply, it's basically embedded into the airline app, either through the airline's website or through the app itself. And at the point of purchase, it prompts you to go ahead and upload your personal details. So using a face scan, using your scan of your passport, we actually create a digital ID. The digital ID then becomes unique to you, to be used on this trip or the next trip, and being able to connect out to other health and safety standards like the European Commission, along with IBM Health. We're actually also able to do all of the checks and compliances behind the scenes. So as you are about to depart for the airport, you actually know that you have actually received clearance. And in order to do that, we're continuing to build out our different partners. So today, we are actually implementing that in 17 of our Altair national carriers. We're starting to talk to a lot more of the national carriers here in Singapore, and really trying to take that step one step further. So of course, COVID, it is around, it's going to stay around for a while. So again, vaccinations, tests will be needed. But what is the next step? So again, if anybody has been traveling to India or some of our other countries, you need an invitation letter, you need a visa. Some of the countries we go to in Africa require yellow fever certificates. So again, taking it to the next level on verification and certification. But where does it really go? And I think this is where we challenge ourselves to be looking at more of a connected industry as a whole. And the next step is really beyond airlines and airports and going further down the travel. So I'm Hannah, and I'm booking a trip to London. It's the first time I've been to London in 2.5 years. I book my flight, my hotel, and my car rental through my national carrier. I agreed to provide my passport details, and here in Singapore, it would be great if I also agreed to provide details to my SingPass. That would have all of my Health Hub details, it would have all of my driver's license details, so I wouldn't have to upload that automatically. And then when I get to the airport, I use biometrics to kind of breeze through Changi Airport. And then once I arrive in Heathrow, I go to the Avis reservation desk. And if anybody has gone to car rentals or car rentals recently, it hasn't changed in many degrees. It's a pain. It takes far too long. So using digital keys to go directly to the car is something that I would personally love to see. And then, of course, when you get to the hotel room after a 15-hour journey, I don't necessarily want to talk to the front desk. I would love to just go to my room, check in, and have the featherless pillows that I've asked for. So is it here? Is there work to do? Absolutely. It's going to involve different partners. It's going to involve government agencies to start approving the extension of us to be able to connect. But I think we all agree that would be a lovely place to see, and hopefully we'll see that sooner rather than later. That's it from me. Thanks, everybody.
Wow. Thank you very much, Ed. Do you want to just stay? Do we have any questions? Do you have any questions for Ed? Anyone? Oh, yes, there's Liz, or the hands go up everywhere. Okay, could we have some microphones?
Go on. Yep. What are the friction points that we expect to see? I think the biggest debate is around the keyless and using your phone or mobile check-in. The debate around kiosk in hotels is questionable. Hotels in airlines, I think, is one of those that we've come to really kind of accept and enjoy because of the experiences getting through that process versus actually getting into the actual airlines itself. And I think it really goes up the scale. So, would you really want a kiosk at a Waldorf Astoria? Probably not. I would really want to have that engagement. So check-in is obviously one of those, I think, verifications. So here in Singapore, just like in Dubai, we actually need to check physically on the actual visas to actually allow people to make sure they should be here and if they're not here. So again, connecting out to different government agencies to enable that end-to-end journey will really be something that we need. Yeah.
So from hospitality industry, we look at Amadeus as a big channel for bookings. but it's also on the decline, as we have seen in the past. What do you see is the future of GDS as a booking channel into hotels?
Yeah, it's a great question, actually. So Tracy and the team actually presented surprising data on GDS. Here in Singapore, I think we're already at 80% of the GDS bookings, which is fantastic. In Australia, we're almost at pre-COVID levels. And I think from a corporate perspective, there's a lot more corporate governance on larger companies by being able to provide safe travel. And a lot of that is through destination management companies or through travel booking systems where they can, A, track where all their employees are and make sure they're safe. And I think that's a big trend that will maintain the GDS and actually kind of drive more GDS traffic for the short term, at least. Yeah.
Just one more up here in front. Yeah.
There has been a lot of talk about attribute selling versus room type selling in the past, and I'm not seeing this moving forward. Where do you see this going, and is it happening, and where are the obstacles?
Yeah, fantastic. So I actually think there's a session by Professor Phil later this afternoon talking specifically about attribute selling. From an Amadeus perspective, so we signed an enterprise agreement with IHG in 2015 and actually rolled out the replacement to Holodex in 2018. And currently been working on attribute selling directly that. You know, how do we actually put attributes within the hotel space where you would have a base rate, just like a seat on an airplane, and using attributes to kind of upsell experiences, whether it's food, beverage, resources, spa. So I'll be interested to hear this afternoon session, but it's a good question. I think for airlines it works. It's not something that we necessarily like, but it's something that the airlines have really adopted. But hoteliers haven't really made it. I think Hilton, with their joined and combined rooms, congratulations, that's such a big problem that we're also having to try and get our head around. But I think ultimately attributes will differentiate between an OTA booking versus direct by actually being able to kind of go to a direct book and actually put in my different preferences. But yeah, it'd be interesting to see. I think technology is going to have to be able to power it first. And then how do hotels kind of upsell and promote it? But I think it would be a good way to drive loyalty in direct bookings. Let's see. Let's see how that pans out.
All right, any more questions? Anyone else? All right, otherwise let's just give Ed another round of applause. Thank you so much. All right, next up, just before lunch, we have got a perspective.